Hey everyone, it's Dr. Jason West and the West Clinic program. We're coming at you with the Stomach University. This is part number 2 of a multiple part series. Week 1, we talked about indigestion, heartburn, and stuff like that. Today, we're going to be talking about diarrhea and constipation. And man, do we have a ton of stuff to go over. So thanks for joining me tonight. I've got 2 cameras here. I got one right over here, and then I got one right here. And we've got tons and tons of stuff to go over, because if your sewer system isn't working right, then you are not working right. And so we've put together some ideas on what we can do to help digestion. We've got some great at-home remedies and like things you can do to stay outside of the doctor's office. And we've got some really nice free reports. I have some additional, like we did a free report last week about digestive health, and we're adding to that report every single week. It's a free download. And so the best way to get this is to send us an email at info@West Clinic Online. But man, have we got a lot of stuff to going over. This is part 2 of what you can do about the stomach and stomach health. And next week, we've got talking about the lower part of the GI system. So every week we are here, and it's the Stomach University this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, what happens the last part of the GI system. But this week, we're going to be talking about if your bowels are going too fast, which is diarrhea, or if they're going too slow, which is constipation. And so, by the way, if I forget to tell you, if you want more information, you can head over to our website. It's the West Clinic Online. We actually have been able to categorize and put all of our live casts that we do every single week. We put them on our website that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I want to make sure that we are creating and generating value for you. So let's go right into the stomach and what we're to do about it. So I've got my program up here. It's diarrhea and constipation this week. The Dr. Jason West program on better health or natural ways to better health. And let's just summarize basically what happens of the review of part 1. So part 1, we talked about a lack of digestion can cause heartburn. And this is so important because so many times when people are trying to dial in and get rid of digestion or heartburn, they are actually exacerbating the problem by taking an acid stopper or an acid blocker. And so my recommendations for heartburn indigestion at first is we just have to do a little experiment. This is so easy to do. We want to take some apple cider vinegar right after meals to see if it helps to break down the food better or quicker. See, if the food doesn't break down fast enough, you get acid reflux, you get heartburn, you get indigestion. And if we speed up digestion, it really takes to help to take care of that. Now, that's what most of the help that goes along with indigestion, heartburn, that will help. About 20% of the time, what happens is there's too much there's not enough digestion, and this helps. If you take a digestive enzyme and aggravates, it means we just got to calm down the sympathetic nervous system. And my favorite way to do that is a natural treatment using a mineral called phosphorus. So that's kind of the quick overview of part 1. And then I like to tell people to do this. Remember, if your digestive system isn't working right, then you are not going to work right. So it's going to affect literally every facet of your life. And dealing with conditions at the West Clinic, we've been in practice 105 years. Obviously, I'm not 105 years. I've been only in 21 years of practice, but with chronic complex conditions, with what we deal with all the time. So autoimmune disorders, stomach problems, arthritis, peripheral neuropathy, cancer support therapy, helping people navigate that process, chronic Lyme disease, Epstein-Barr, almost all of them have a stomach component. And really what health is, I think this is so important, is to do this, is to slow down, to keep calm, to be positive, take it easy, enjoy life, have fun, relax, go outside, meditate. Like, it's so important to have a stress relief. And I've heard so many different things from people of, what should I do to get rid of stress? Well, I don't know. And what I mean by that is I don't know what it's for you. Like I know what it is for me. I like to meditate. I like to read. I love riding my dirt bike and relationships with family. Since I broke my clavicle up here and I've got a plate and 9 screws 3 weeks ago, I'm kind of transitioning over that to fishing. And one of my good friends said, I'm going to save you from this. No, you can't go fishing. But anyway, there's no right or wrong answer for what it is. Gardening, playing a musical instrument, listening to a musical instrument, crossword puzzles, reading scriptures, reading good books, like whatever it is for you. I think it's so important to set aside time for that. And I recommend, it's so important to get 15 minutes a day. Like put that on your schedule, that and to schedule it with the most important person in your life. And that's you. And I'm not trying to tell people you need to be narcissistic or you need to be selfish. But if you are healthy and you are balanced and you are in a good zen or a good state, it's easier to have better relationships. It's easier to enjoy life. So whatever that is, make sure that you're following this matrix right here. I think this is just fantastic. Slow down, keep calm, be positive. Recognize that so many problems in life, and I'm not saying that anybody has it easy, but so much of the time, we allow things to get on our plate and allow us to stress out when we really have no control over those. And it's easy to manage or to tell people how to navigate life. It's harder to live your life. Everybody's trying to figure that out. But man, like that's one of the things that I recognize and to tell people. So let's get into the stomach. Remember, this is the stomach diagram when food comes down from the top and drops into your stomach. If our stomach isn't healthy, the food ferments, it rots, it decays, and it tries to go north or up. And that's where you get that heartburn and digestion. It can't go south. And if we can help that process by speeding up digestion, apple cider vinegar, proteolytic enzymes, things that help the pancreas digest food, that's step number one. If that aggravates you, which I think it's about 20-25% of the time, we have too much sympathetic nervous system dominance. My favorite thing to do downregulate that is phosphorus helps the vagus nerve to calm down. Now we want to go one step further down and we want to talk about, diarrhea and constipation. So before I forget, to summarize this, healthy enzymes, like if you have a lack of indigestion, healthy enzymes, protecting your stomach lining, getting fiber and making sure that your movement, this is such a good place to start. Now, if you have too much, hyperacidity, protecting the stomach lining with acid, with a proteolytic enzyme, Montmorillonite K, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, those fat-soluble vitamins help to protect the stomach. You can downregulate the nervous system with phosphorus, and then mineral therapy, and then we want to manage stress. We want to have a way to really, really help that. Now, today in the Stomach University, we're going to talk about things going too fast, which is diarrhea, things going too slow, which is constipation, and I want to give a little shout out for a lint roller therapy, or literally how we can get out of the stuff out of the distal part of the colon. So let's just talk about the most common things that we're seeing, which is it's diarrhea, which is too fast, loose watery stools, infection, food allergies, disease. I also want to talk a little bit about the gallbladder and the liver, and then constipation, which is so common. It only affects 20% of the population, so 60 million Americans at least, but it's a worldwide problem, and that is 3 or less bowel movements per week. Ideally, we should be like a baby. We should have stuff go in, and then we should have stuff go out. Difficulty passing stools or an incomplete feeling of evacuation is the classic sign of constipation. And the bowel health review. Remember, going to the bathroom is such a normal, important part of life. And no matter what you call it, stool, it's so important. My boys just think it's hilarious to talk about bowel movements and belching and burping and flatulence and farting. But man, talk about being normal. And so much of the time, it seems a little bit more common in women than men. They're like, well, I really don't want to go to the bathroom. So, I don't drink enough water. I don't want to be bothered at work, or I don't want to do it when I travel. And what happens is, like, if your sewer system doesn't work right, you don't work right. And so when you have a loose or watery stool, we call it diarrhea, and it's such a common condition. Usually it resolves without intervention, but the danger is if you have dehydration, when your body loses large amounts of water and electrolytes, it can really agitate your kidneys. And remember, everyone, your kidneys are like basically the engine that makes everything work, or I guess a better way would be the starter. So this, in Oriental medicine, the kidneys, like, literally, it starts the whole process, and diarrhea can really aggravate that. And so one of the most important things when people have loose watery stools is making sure that they're getting enough electrolytes and that they're getting enough water. Now, that kind of, for some people, it's a little bit counterintuitive. They think, well, if I'm having loose watery stools, I'm getting too much water, I should stop drinking. And that's like so not the right thing to do. And if we think about the diarrhea types, we've got acute that lasts, 1 to 2 days, usually resolves on its own. It could be something that we ate, or could be a stressful situation or a new medication, and usually goes away. Persistent diarrhea is classified as 2 to 4 weeks. And then chronic diarrhea is longer than 4 weeks. And then the concerns with diarrhea, like if again, we're all a little bit on a roller coaster. It's not uncommon to have an occasionally loose stool. It's not uncommon to have a little bit of a constipation. But when we talk about diarrhea, if we start dark urine, if our heart rate increases, if we get headaches and dry skin and irritability and confusion, these are all signs that we're losing too many minerals. And I would make the argument that minerals are more important than vitamins, because many times you can get the vitamins, you can synthesize, you can make it from the colon, but your minerals, like, those are just important building blocks. And my experience with patients is so many people are mineral deficient. And so what causes the diarrhea? Well, it's infection, I think, is the most common one, bacteria and viruses. Toxins, like we live in 2021. So many times people come in contact with too much polyvinyl chloride, which in my opinion is eating foods that are around plastic too much. We're around petrochemicals and gas and diesel exhaust. And guess what? There's these things called heavy metals that literally disappear in the environment. Like, we have 200 tons of mercury that just seems to disappear, goes up into the atmosphere, and common sense tells us it's got to come down. And basically what heavy metals do to your system is heavy metals do what kryptonite does to Superman. Instead of being a superhero and living your life all the way up here, heavy metals make it so that you live down here. It paralyzes your system. And then we have allergies, and we have food intolerances, we have celiac disease, lactose intolerances. Medication can be a culprit, radiation therapy. And then, my dad would always say, you are what you eat. And then I ran into one of the seminars I went to. There was a doctor that was saying, you are what you absorb. And I think that is absolutely key. Unintentionally, we can have some antibiotics, clindamycin, erythromycin, or broad spectrum antibiotics can unintentionally cause diarrhea because it offsets the bacteria. And this is why I think there's definitely a place for antibiotics, but I also think they're so overused. And especially when patients go into the doctor and then they get diagnosed with a viral infection or a cold, and I even had a patient that just this week came in with Epstein-Barr, which is mononucleosis, or it's a common infectious disease. And the doctor gave him an antibiotic, and I was kind of scratching my head thinking, well, antibiotics don't work on viruses. Why would the doctor do that? And the patient said, well, he told me that, that if I help with the immune system, knock out any bad bacteria, it'll help my body to overcome a virus. I don't think that's exactly what's happening, but sometimes antibiotics have, and well, I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times antibiotics have the unintentional effect of killing out the good guys. This is why it's so important to feed your stomach with prebiotics and also probiotics. So probiotics feed prebiotics, and this is such an important part. I'm going to come up this a little bit later in the presentation. Mild diarrhea, can get bloating and cramps and a strong urge to have a bowel movement. A lot of times it's associated with an upset stomach. And severe diarrhea, which you can kind of make the argument is any diarrhea that lasts 2 or 3 days is severe. And if it's accompanied by fever, weight loss, dehydration, severe pain, almost always there's an infectious component. And so we got to upregulate the immune system and help with the vomiting. Like there's some B vitamins, there's a fat soluble B extract like choline. I think that taurine is really helpful for vomiting. Getting an electrolyte or a vitamin C IV. And then we don't want to see blood anywhere. We don't want to be throwing up blood, and we don't want to make sure that there's no blood coming out of the GI system. And so we really want to help with diarrhea. And I've got some great at-home things coming up on this. Now, the other thing that's really important with diarrhea, and this is kind of socially awkward to talk about. I was practicing this with my son and he started giggling, but I don't think enough people are looking at their bowel movements. Now, what does that mean? In Oriental medicine, one of the things that I was taught is the emperor, when he would go to the emperor's physician, is he would take the bowel movement inside of a pot or a pan and take it, and the Oriental medical physician or the court physician would look at it and look at color and look at basically, is it a form stool or not a form stool? Is there blood or pus in the diarrhea? Or is it upset by greasy or oily foods? And if maybe it's not, maybe you're having greasy stools or what they call steatorrhea, which is white or light colored stools, even without non-fatty meals. And the reason why we can't talk about fatty meals is because if that's aggravating you, it means that the liver and the gallbladder isn't helping to digest or break down fats. And I think that this is so important because if you can't break down fats, what happens is now you're at risk for peripheral neuropathy and your brain's not going to function right. And you're not going to be able to generate the hormones that you need. And if it's incredibly foul smelling, then we've got something bad going on. We've got some type of infection that's occurring, and we want to know about that. So to treat people, and again, one of the reasons I decided to do this broadcast every week is because I want to help people at home. And so if you can identify the cause, and part of it is, was there a food, basically bad food that's causing it? Is it a change in medications? Is it an incredibly stressful situation? Is it a supplement that you might be taking? And for the most part, I think that supplements are usually pretty benign, but sometimes, and especially with mass-produced essential fatty acids, this is one of my biggest concerns that I urge people to take a look at. If you're taking omega-3s, omega-6s, fish oil, flaxseed oil, and you get fish burps and stuff, that oil is rancid. Like, it's not healthy for you. And I see this so many times when people will be like, hey, look, I read something on the internet, or I read something in one of the newsletters that I got about essential fatty acids. And so I went and got some, and man, it gives me the worst burps and gas and blood. Well, the oil isn't healthy. It's basically rancid. And so it's such a common problem in stomach problems. And so here's some other ideas. If you have diarrhea, one thing that's really important to do is to see if you're getting too much caffeine, because caffeine is a laxative. Another thing is to avoid gas-causing foods, beans and cabbage and carbonation. And I didn't write this down, but this is an important component, is one of the biggest gas-causing foods is bananas. I see this so often where there's some carbohydrates in there. If your stomach isn't healthy, that's one of the biggest culprits. And then I always want people to be careful with lactose. So if you're in an acute or chronic diarrhea situation, be careful with some of those gas-causing foods and give yourself a little bit of a break from those. Some of the safe foods that are really good for diarrhea, I like white rice. This is one of the rare times I recommend it. Potatoes, noodles, bananas can be mixed. I already mentioned that. I love applesauce. Bread, chicken or turkey without the skin. And the reason why I say without the skin is because a lot of the fats in birds is contained in the skin. And if you're having difficulties with your liver, gallbladder situation, you want to basically get protein without the skin, lean ground beef, fish, and other things that are really helpful in cases of diarrhea. And so this is what I'm telling people to be your doctor at home. It's not a bad idea to take the load off of the stomach. I love intermittent fasting. I'm such a big fan of a kidney doctor in Toronto, Canada, named Jason Fung, that put together a wonderful book called The Complete Guide to Intermittent Fasting. Believe it or not, digestive enzymes to help break down the food that's in your stomach. Fiber, either, senna and psyllium husk are good considerations, and doing an infection protocol. If you're having diarrhea, one of the best things I tell people, like, I love vitamin C, I love echinacea, I love elderberry and lomatium and golden seal and burdock. I think those are really, really good in the case of acute diarrhea. In chronic diarrhea, we've got to dig just a little bit further. And then as part of the presentation, I got to reach out and do the opposite and talk about constipation. So constipation is the opposite of diarrhea. It's when you're not going to the bathroom enough. And is it a causing problem? Oh my gosh, it's huge. And maybe it's because I deal with sick people all day long, all week long. And if their stomach systems don't work, then they don't work right. And so what I would love to see is to help people to get their conveyor belt to work a little bit better. And that is speeding up the conveyor. So diarrhea is going too fast. Constipation is going too slow. And so it's so common. I have people saying, like, I'm kind of scared to go to the bathroom. If they have 3 bowel movements or less a week, if their stools are hard or dry or lumpy, or it's difficulty or painful when passing stools. And a lot of times people say, I just don't feel like I got everything out of the system. And so it has this enormous effect. It's a serious negative biological effect. It obviously affects your physical health. And if your bowels aren't going very well, it absolutely affects your moods and emotion. So constipation causes, the most common I see is a lack of water. So many people are dehydrated. I absolutely love to read. One of my favorite books is written by an Iranian medical doctor named Dr. Batmanjidi, called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. So he was thrown in prison when there was a political transition from the Shah of Iran to Ayatollah Khomeini, and they took a lot of educated people and put them into the prison system. And I'm not an expert in the politics of the Middle East, but I do recognize, like, this doctor, phenomenal, Dr. Batmanjidi, that was saying that your body's many cries for water in the prison system. He had the ability to treat with basically time, with sunlight, and with water. And what a wonderful book. So many constipation problems or lack of water. And by the way, it's not sparkling water or carbonation. It's actually healthy spring water. Man, what a wonderful way to treat people. Another, basically, like, get more water. And I see this in so many people saying, well, I was traveling to the office and I didn't want to go to the bathroom, so I didn't drink water. If you don't have enough water, it's kind of like the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz. Like, and nothing's going to work right. Migraine headaches, arthritis, your GI system, hormone formation, muscle function, muscle cramps, restless leg syndrome are all related to water. And then the next thing is not getting enough fiber. So fiber is basically the roughage component. Probably the best or my favorite thing with water is celery. I think cabbage is really good. I think cucumbers are really good. Now, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, because sometimes people can be food sensitive and basically they don't break the foods down. And so if you have that, there's some specific testing where we can test the 96 most common foods and see if you have antibodies. But one of the first recommendations is to get 1, more water, 2, get more fiber, and then movement. Now, I don't necessarily expect people to be running a marathon or an Ironman competition. And when we talk about exercise, like, the number one thing is, like, just move a little bit more. So one of the recommendations of people that don't feel good is, why don't you park your car just a little bit farther away from the store or church or your kid's house, get a couple extra steps. I recommend just 5 to 10% more. Also, there's so many important things associated with the event of exercise. Like, I promise you guys are never going to see me on the side of the road running. I'm never going to be in a marathon, but I do like getting on a treadmill. I like activities associated with organization. And I can't believe this because I feel old, that I like to do some of the projects at home, not yard work, by the way. I have to draw the line somewhere. But my point is if you can find an activity or an exercise that you like, what you want to do is to just move. It moves your skeletal muscles. It moves your GI system. Walking is really good. Swimming is probably the favorite exercise. It's hard to get to a pool is in our area, but if you have a lake or a swimming pool, you have the option to get in the water. It's so good because it doesn't compress your joints. And then I think there's some really good laxatives and stuff. Senna, prebiotics, which feed probiotics, and then FODMAP. Now, the kind of the easiest way to understand FODMAP is it's a fermented food diet. The other things that are really neat are constipation. And I just did a podcast. This is something that we just barely put up on our website about the miracle mineral of magnesium. I like to advise people, 400 to 600 milligrams is a great place to start, but it's one of my favorite things to do for constipation. And then some things to avoid if you're having constipation, and that is dairy and wheat and food dyes. Like if you give your body a break, and so many times people come in the office and say, hey, Dr. West, you know what? I tried eliminating dairy and it didn't make a difference. And I'll say, well, how long did you do it? Well, I did it for a week, or I did it for 2 weeks, or I tried a celiac, basically avoiding wheat. And one of my first things that I tell them is, you know what? It really takes about 90 days for the microvilli, these little hairs in your or pits in your GI system that help to absorb food. If you are celiac or gluten sensitive, it usually takes about 90 days before the stomach will actually heal and process that. So we can spend a lot of money on stomach problems going and looking at celiac sensitivity and gluten sensitivity. And the first thing I tell people is, like, this is so good for you anyway. Like, just take a vacation from wheat and drive 90 days before you make a decision. And by the way, I know exactly what I'm asking for because I've gone through a celiac program and it's hard. Like, I know exactly what I'm asking people to do because I've done it. Honestly, it's one of the best I've ever felt. And this is hard to get. I mean, I grew up with whole wheat bread, and every special occasion my mom makes these caramel cinnamon rolls are the best things ever. And they're wonderful tasting, but my hands feel a little bit stiff. I don't feel as sharp in the morning. My brain doesn't function as well. Like, I know I do better when I eat fruits, vegetables, and protein sources. And so that's what I encourage people to do with that. Also, if you would like some more information, you can pick up so many things up here on our website. We've just putting our blogs up here where we're going back and we're picking up. We've done over 100 live casts on arthritis, and we've done it on food sensitivities and common clinical condition. We've done Lyme disease, we've done fibromyalgia, we've done Epstein-Barr. And so if you come up here and you go basically into the blog section, and you'll see different posts and stuff that are coming out. This is one of the reasons why I recommend, if you would like a comprehensive report on lack of digestion or sympathetic overload or diarrhea constipation, please either comment digestion inside of the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, or the best, most surest way to get the report is just send us a quick email at info@westcliniconline, and we will immediately send you a report. I would love for you guys to give me a comment inside of the comment section so that I know that you're there. That would be fantastic. And if you have a healthcare condition that you would like for us to discuss, you should give us a shout out, because a lot of the topics that we do are reports from people. we are getting ready to go inside of our Thrivers program, which is a virtual office visit system that I put together. And we've got, it's something that we literally every week, any healthcare question that you have for you or your loved one, we design custom supplement programs and virtual visits and free reports and stuff is inside of our Thrivers program. And literally you can get a virtual office visit with me every single week, and it's called the Thrivers program if you want to participate in that. And to get information, it's thewestclinic.com. You can get in this. Now, next week, we are going over the bottom part of the GI system, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, anal fissures and hemorrhoids. I think that's the last part of the GI system. It's going to be part 3 of your digestive report. It is every Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. This is the secrets of stomach health. We're going to be doing it all through July. Thank you so much for joining with me so much. I will see you guys next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. I appreciate all of the comments inside of this. If your stomach isn't working right, you are not working right. This is the Dr. Jason West and West Clinic program. We'll see you guys next Wednesday night, 6 o'clock for part 3 of the digestive report, what you can do at home to avoid the doctor's visits and advanced cutting edge therapies that your doctor, most of the time, they don't know about. It's 105 years of clinical experience. I'm Dr. West. Thanks for joining our program. We'll see you guys next Wednesday night.